All right. I believe this means we are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions. Welcome to another Monday morning tech chat show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka SomeGadgetGuy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast series. But the QA is the important part because that obviously stands for question and answer, as I like to make this an interactive conversation with an amazing group of folks in the live chat. Aditya Anil, Nick Fell, Dave Burns, JMX Warrior, Mimranglot. I'm happy to see that name again. Kyoterusanti, Simon says Hypno, Chatty Boy, Heiki, Gary the Fireman, JJ4884, Warhead. This is going to be a great chat. I can feel it already. So I am very excited. Chat out some news of the week. We are fully into Techtober. There is a ton of gadgety stuff, just sending all out all over the place. It's already been kind of crazy keeping up with the production schedule, doing a challenge with TK, also trying to fill in a few extra little videos, some audio gear that's going to be coming up that I'm really excited to talk about, and then also just being under embargo for products that I can't yet talk about. So, we've got a lot to really cover, but it's weird that you kind of fall into these holding patterns, like I really want to say this, but I can't just yet. And then a deluge of videos all get kind of launched or promoted on the same day. And Gary the Fireman already off and running, gifting subs to Mimranglot and Aditya Anil. He's at 78 gift subs on this channel, and I can't thank him enough for supporting production on this on this Twitch channel, but then just in general, being an amazing benefactor for a number of techies out there promoting and producing really good content. I'm already going to take a sip of water here from this tasty Mega Pickle mug. All right. So, I hope you had a lovely weekend. This weekend was my wife's birthday weekend. Her birthday was actually the middle of last week, but we took some family time out to celebrate this weekend. And Lex and I baked her a cake, which you can see on Instagram, where for someone who's not very good at baking, I think I'm a pretty good cook. I am a terrible baker. I think I'm a pretty good, I think Lex and I, a man in his 40s and a girl not yet 5 managed to produce a reasonable facsimile of a birthday cake. I feel like Lex's touch of dumping a ton of star sprinkles on top of this cake really sort of sealed the deal on this being a festive piece of chocolate goodness. I hope you all had a phenomenal weekend with everything that's going on in the world. I hope you were able to spend some time with family and friends, or Zoom calls, or playing some good games, or just something for your own mental faculties that you were able to kind of unplug for a bit. It's still pretty weird out there, and we're going to be talking about some heady news topics. So I want to burn through the news block, give us a little time on the back end to talk gadgets and what's in the lab and some of the things I've been working on. But yeah, it's crazy times out there, and I hope you all are taking those moments, because again, they feel very fleeting. Like I need to not look at my phone right now so that I can enjoy this aspect of my life that's happening right in front of me. So when those opportunities arise, I hope that you're able to take advantage of them. All right, Gary the Fireman is already putting out a housekeeping over under 9 minutes. I have been in a whirlwind of production. I've been working with the crew at Newegg. We've been putting out some really interesting videos on the Newegg YouTube channel. I've been doing almost a video a day, Monday through Friday, for the last month. So, everything that we're going to talk about on the show, all of the stories, all of the topics, and of course the housekeeping, everything's going to be on the show notes for this week's episode of the podcast on SomeGadgetGuy.com. Make sure you catch all those links because there's a lot going on. Mimranglot, I haven't been on the podcast for a while. How has Juan been for housekeeping, guys? Aditya Nil saying, housekeeping 7 minutes. I believe the tech block will be longer than usual. And Simon says, Hypno says, he's been tightening it up. I think I've been doing pretty good with housekeeping. Now talking about housekeeping, why don't we go ahead and screen share this out, and we can move on this aggressively, because I do want to get through housekeeping pretty quick. I have been putting out a lot of videos. I have been very appreciative of the people who have been helping to share those videos, because YouTube, my channel metrics for putting out this many videos have never been poorer. Like in discovery and watch time and all of those things that YouTube says are so important for the health and growth of a channel, I am growing by like 2,000 subs a month, and no one's watching my video. So let's burn through this. It's 9:06 Pacific Daylight Time, and I want to be done 9:07 Pacific Daylight Time, and I want to be done fast. So starting off, last week was important for us, between TK and I. We're doing another mini phone swap challenge. This is going to be our third yearly phone exchange. The first one was photography phones. Second challenge was ultra cheap phones. And phone swap 3 is going to be productivity phones. If you have not seen this video, you have missed one of the funniest moments TK has ever put on video. TK is hilarious. I'm mugging this video like crazy. He completely steals the show with one of the funniest improv moments I've ever committed to video. It is phenomenal. But we're swapping my Surface Duo for his Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, and we're going to report back and play around with some thoughts on productivity phones. This year is going to be a little different, where the phone exchange is between two gadgets. Like, I bought my Surface Duo, he bought the Note 20. We're trading so that we can cover those phones on our channels. But we're also going to mix in some V60 commentary, because we want to talk about phones that can get work done. This is our first phone challenge with sort of a 3-gadget sort of round robin experience. But yeah, catch the video, because TK is really funny. All right, moving right along. I felt that this was important to follow up on. It really bothers me when something interesting happens, like we get 2 versions of the same phone with different processors, but then we don't get as much commentary on what that actually means for those differences in performance. So I took a little time to compare the LG Velvet with a Qualcomm processor against the LG Velvet on T-Mobile with a MediaTek processor. And let me tell you, it's nice having some competition for processors in the smartphone market in North America. Usually this isn't something we get here. And again, for using a MediaTek, I feel like we're in better territory than where Samsung will use an Exynos for most of the world, and then will use Qualcomm for a couple regions where it seems to matter more. So the video is the real LG Velvet on T-Mobile. You can catch that, and some good, I feel like I did a pretty good job breaking down all of the differences, because it's not just Geekbench scores, it's real world performance, audio performance, and camera performance. Then I am crazy excited to have one of these in the Gadget Lab. I've been a big fan of the NextDock. It's a laptop shell with no computer brain. You plug in a phone, you plug in a tablet, plug in a Raspberry Pi, you could plug in a Chromecast, a camera, a game console, and you power the laptop dock with whatever you plug into it. So now the refresh, this is the new NextDock, which has a touch screen. This is a full laptop shell, a giant battery to charge your phone and power the screen, keyboard, touchpad, ports, full-sized HDMI input, USB, memory card reader, a headphone jack, speakers, it's got front-facing quad speakers, and it's $269. So it's $70 more than the nice portable touchscreen monitor I reviewed a couple weeks back. That's kind of a big deal. So if you want to get more compute power out of your phone more efficiently, I feel like having docks like this significantly improves your ability to use the compute power of your phone. Nick Fell is asking, is there a next dock or similar that's a touch tablet? I want a bigger screen for maps in my car, and my car cannot be retrofitted with Android Auto. I do not know of any. Well, I mean, what you could do, there's an Asus battery-powered touchscreen monitor, and you could probably hook up most premium Android phones that support HDMI output to something like that. So you might be able to rig something like that in a car. I'm not sure how well. And again, you want to be real careful. Anything that's kind of loosely mounted in a car becomes a projectile if you ever get into an accident. So you'd want to maybe talk to an auto body shop about how you can best mount it so that it stays put. And then wrapping up this last week of really awesome, cool, fun videos and reviews. Okay, so I'm a big old nerd for Mobvoi. I really like the TicWatch brand. I feel like Android, when it comes to Wear OS, sorry, I'm trying to say three things all at the same time and failing because my brain's locking up and I'm thinking faster than I'm talking. Wear OS is the third place smartwatch OS. No getting around that. I think the Apple Watch has the most mind share for a good smartwatch experience. I think there are many Android users who would probably do better with a Galaxy Watch, given the interaction with applets. But Mobvoi using Wear OS on TicWatch hardware, I feel a lot of people kind of overlook what Mobvoi has done to improve Android smartwatches. A lot of the better improvements to software, to UI, to navigation as you're swiping through came from TicWatch first. Like the quad directional swipes that take you to different little applets. That was TicWatch. That was the first generation TicWatch before we moved from Android Wear to Wear OS. There's supposed to be this major update coming to Wear OS. Google's talking about significantly improved performance, better performance for apps. But Mobvoi kind of has the lock on the new processor for smartwatches, this new Snapdragon Wear 4100. But they're also keeping one of the absolute best adaptations, this dual screen approach where you've got a juicy OLED when you want to do the smart stuff, but then you've got a low power reflective screen when you just want to reference a watch face. And when Mobvoi says, oh yeah, you get about 72 hours of runtime on a TicWatch, that's 72 hours of always on screen. You can always reference a TicWatch without having to like waggle your arm around to get the screen to light up. I mean, just your arm's laying there and you want to look at the time. You don't have to like sign language your way into getting the screen to turn on. It's always on. It can reference as a fitness tracker. You really do get like 3 days of runtime. So it's like marrying the best aspects of a smart computer on your wrist with a juicy screen with something like a Pebble. And that is a wonderful combination for both fitness tracking, smart watching, and just passive timepiece keeping. So I'm not holding my breath. I want Wear OS to improve. I'm hoping Google will finally give it a bit more attention. But even in this state, the new processor is more powerful. Interactions are smoother. Referencing like the Messages app is actually useful on this watch now. Whereas on older smartwatches, it was kind of clumsy enough that you just want to pull out your phone. Those interactions have all improved significantly now. And hopefully they do really get better. They really do get better when we get that new software. So, and then it's also like $100 cheaper than a Wi-Fi only model of the Apple Watch Series 6. I don't know if that matters to people, but maybe it matters to you. I really like. It's the watch I'm wearing right now. I really like this new TicWatch Pro. Let me take a drink. Matt Tyler, my apologies for being late. Juan came in talking about my boy watch. So I want to call it like Mobvoi, Mobvoi. The name of the watch. Anyway, So, yes, those are all the major videos that got launched last week. I mean, I'm piggybacking content like crazy. We just recently talked about, new ANC earbuds from One More, the Xperia 1 and Xperia 5, which I still have more videos coming out on the Xperias. The Microsoft Duo, Surface Duo still needs more coverage. I have a calendar of videos coming out that will probably take me to the beginning of December. And there are new phones showing up like every day. So, and I'm hoping to spend a little time with the Wing coming up soon. I don't know exactly when that's going to happen. We've got a OnePlus 8T rumor and leak, and I'm hoping I can spend a little time with the OnePlus 8T. It's heady stuff. So 9/16. We finished housekeeping in 9 minutes. I feel like I did pretty good. And now Dave Burns is redeeming a stretch. So I'm gonna pull this up here. And my voice is in better shape than we were in last week, but I am going to be trying to use more of my talking voice than my big broadcasting voice. So. And about the Aditya Anil, I'm Matt Tyler with the hydrate. So I'm just going to piggyback those two hydrates. Okay. So, news block is a little political. So, posture check. Ooh, I got a good one on my neck there. Thanks, Charlie. So news block is a little political. I don't really want to hit the news block too heavy this week. We've got some stories that we just need to keep following up on. The very sort of fabric of how we interact with mega corporations is being examined as we speak. In light of the upcoming presidential election, in light of how social media companies do business with advertisers, and then also how we buy and own products. These are sort of the baby steps, the first steps of longer conversations that are going to take place over generations of consumers. So if we allow ourselves to just fall into the habit of reading a headline every 6 months, or John Oliver does a story about net neutrality and we all really care about that for a week, that doesn't really help us untangle and examine and come up with better policy. So I want to start off with Apple and Epic. A judge ruled, this is coming by way of TechCrunch, by the way. Judge denies Epic's request to force Apple to bring Fortnite back to the App Store, written up by Lucas Matney. We all expected this, right? No one's surprised that the legal system, looking at how Epic kind of broke their agreement with Apple on Fortnite, no one's surprised that a judge would rule that as it stands with the current terms of service on Apple's App Store, that Epic couldn't force Apple to keep Fortnite on the App Store while court proceedings were going. And so this is from the filing. Epic Games has strong arguments regarding Apple's exclusive distribution through the iOS App Store and the in-app purchase system, through which Apple takes 30% of certain IAP payments. However, given the limited record, Epic Games has not sufficiently addressed Apple's counter-arguments. The equities addressed in the temporary restraining order remain the same. So, we're in a holding pattern, but our first sort of court ruling here verifies the position where Fortnite is not coming back to the App Store, but Apple can't pull Epic Games' developer license for Unreal Engine. So app developers using Unreal should still have access to Unreal, and that Epic can still continue to improve it and work on it. Their developer account for Unreal Engine remains intact. So a judge just verifies what we currently felt was sort of the correct place for us to be right now. Now, why I wanted to start with that story is because we've been talking for the last couple weeks about how Apple does business with their consumers and what the responsibilities are for Apple to maintain consistency in how they charge developers or they take their payments for in-app purchases. We've been following up on that story with game streaming services, where Apple's solution for game streaming is to kind of break how game streaming works and to force Microsoft to list every single game as a separate entry in the App Store. And no one wants that. If you were to ask, iPhone users, do you want the App Store to become more cluttered with Microsoft titles, Microsoft games? Do you want it to be harder to look through the App Store and then see all of these games listed that are really going to be through Game Pass and xCloud? Is that what you want, so that Apple can force a 30% cut of a service that they don't support just to have access to it on your platform? And I think most people would say probably not. And Nick Fell, Game Pass will be a web app to get around Apple. We already saw a story on that they're working on something that can play through Safari so that you just don't have to deal with that App Store interaction. So it's interesting because at the same time, like, all of these stories kind of start linking. The patterns here aren't difficult to kind of, follow. The threads, it takes a little while for us to work through this process legally. And that's why we kind of just need to keep an eye on this stuff. A while back, we sat through the live stream. It was like a 4-hour live stream that I kept up on Twitch here. But the House of Representatives, a judiciary committee through the House of Representatives, held testimony with the CEOs of Facebook, Amazon, Alphabet, Google, and Apple. So that public record, that public testimony was largely already working in a direction where we were pretty confident that the Democrats on that House committee were likely pointing to those 4 companies as exercising monopoly power over their individual industries. And having them testify all at the same time, I felt was a little clumsy, because what you're examining from a company like Apple is going to be very different than what you're examining from a company like Amazon, and our concerns as to how they do business. But CNBC has reported on the sort of the it's a almost 500-page document coming from this House Judiciary Subcommittee. Let me throw up CNBC here. This was written up by Lauren Feiner. House Democrats say Facebook, Amazon, Alphabet, Apple enjoy monopoly power and recommend big changes. And so I want folks to read through this. This is a great write-up by CNBC, kind of breaking down what the House findings were. If you want, you can read through the 450-page document, and also examining how sometimes these protections fall under sort of monopoly protections. Sometimes they fall under regulatory protection. Sometimes it's DOJ. Sometimes it's FTC. But they list some kind of starting points on what they feel. The Democrats list some of these starting points on what they feel might be appropriate courses of action to take. And some of those are, like, maybe we need to break up some of these companies where they don't have multiple institutions or multiple monetization methods that kind of conflict with consumer interests. But I want to scroll down their findings on Apple. So again, this is according to the Democrats on the House subcommittee. Apple's monopoly power exists in the market for software app distribution on iOS devices. That is very critical wording. When this was all going down and the testimony was being delivered, there were going to be 2 schools of thought. Does Apple maintain a monopoly because of how locked up iOS is, or will this House subcommittee find that being able to completely leave the Apple ecosystem constitutes competition? Because that's Apple's position. That's Tim Cook's position. During the testimony, he said, well, I mean, if you don't want those protections of the Apple App Store, you're free to leave. That's not a direct quote. But Apple's stance essentially is, because Android exists, you are free to leave the iOS ecosystem at any time, and that means we don't have a monopoly on iOS. We don't have a monopoly on Apple consumers, products, services. It would seem that the House of Representatives disagrees that that is sufficient competition. And that is that's a critical legal definition in how they're trying to start this process of kind of untangling the App Store and Apple products and services. The report says Apple's mobile ecosystem has provided significant benefits to both consumers and app developers. Even so, the report alleges Apple uses its control of its operating system and App Store to, quote, create and enforce barriers to competition and discriminate against and exclude rivals while preferencing its own offerings. The staff also alleges Apple uses its market power to, quote, exploit app developers through misappropriation of competitively sensitive information and to charge app developers supra-competitive prices within the App Store. In the past year, Apple has faced a growing number of app developers complaining about its rules and commission in exchange for placement on its App Store. Most recently, Apple faces a lawsuit from Epic Games over such complaints. So, we're in for a pretty exciting fight. I mean, this is why we're seeing Facebook rush to staple all of their services together. We can't untangle Messenger from Instagram. That just couldn't happen. I mean, all of our services are just so entwined. There's no way we'd be able to separate them out at this point. But the idea of having a store as a platform for apps and software and services, and having hardware that utilizes that store and that store alone, we're finding that while it brings some benefits in some ways, likely contributes to some consumer harms in other ways. It's always going to be a balancing act. And I'd also question whether or not we really truly believe that Apple is somehow magically immune from malware, from exploits, from other consumer harms just because they've tried to build up these really tall walled gardens around their products. I would say instead the main aspect of this is consumer lock-in, and it makes it more difficult for you to leave, and it makes it painful to kind of pull yourself out, and you lose so much if you've really invested money in this app store, and then you can't have any competing service. You can't have a game streaming service. You can't have an Amazon app store where you could kind of play with maybe another way to buy or sell apps. So last week we talked about Google a little bit. I mean, it wasn't a major story that we talked about, but following up on that, Google is going to be enforcing their 30% cut more consistently starting in 2021. I think at the end of 2021. They're going to be saying, developers, if you sell apps on our platform, 30%, and that's going to be the cut. It's been inconsistently applied, which is really weird that legally they could get away with that. But I think they're trying to head off some of these, like the lawsuits that are coming to iOS. I think they're trying to head that off. But at the same time, Google is going to make it clearer how you can do business with alternative app selling marketplaces. So that's going to be their strategy, I feel, of getting around this monopolistic idea of their platform, where they won't be, held up before a Senate subcommittee because all Android phones need to use Google Play. They can point to Humble Bundle, Amazon App Store. Maybe Epic wants to only sell games for mobile directly through their own Epic Game Store, and you can support it that way. There are already alternative marketplaces that people can use, and it works very similarly to how Google Play works to install apps. I'll be interested to see is Apple manage the perception of their brand, lobby the lawmakers to sort of work out the most preferential category for their own services, and see if they can't maintain that lock on their products? Because I feel like that's the big hook. The App Store generates so much revenue for Apple right now. It's gonna be an ugly legal battle trying to convince or trying to enforce Apple doing business in another way. Apple always manages to skirt by on this stuff, right? The EU says everyone needs to adopt a similar charger or similar cable so that we can reduce e-waste, except Apple. They always manage to weasel through in a way to make sure that they get some sort of preferential or standalone treatment. And I'm sure it's going to happen here too. Once the commission's findings come down, the subcommittee has delivered this report. Will there be any actual lawmaker follow through on these reports? I don't know. From Matt Tyler, strangely, Huawei are proof you don't need the Play Store to run Android and have games and apps. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's very true. I think in other markets too, I think throughout the EU, there's a little less dependence on Google Play, definitely throughout, say, some Chinese manufacturers, you don't see Google Play services on those phones. From Dave Burns replying to JJ and Nick, I was trying to respond to something in a timely manner. I just think it would be an interesting case to combat Apple saying they only have 30% of the smartphone market. But they don't have 30% of the North American market, which is why this subcommittee hearing is so important, because we're talking about the government of the United States of America looking at the citizens of the United States of America and their shopping habits. Where Apple is now starting to crest, 40% of the U.S., maybe closer to 50% now. There are reports that we're probably going to see a sudden spike in market share for Apple once the iPhone 12 has announced it. It could be kind of interesting. So these are very important stories to continue following up on. And Dave Burns is saying Apple owns roughly 60% on the high end. I mean, if we look at iOS, because tablet sales, they dominate. If you call something a tablet, Apple is basically untouchable. I don't know. It's heady stuff, but then we also need to see, is there a better way to do business, and is Apple actually abusing their market position? And I think a lot of developers would agree with the assessment from this subcommittee. We broke down the story about WordPress. Apple refused to include a WordPress app update because they wanted WordPress to include in-app purchases so that they could get a cut of services WordPress offered. And then it took multiple reviews. And the only reason we ever heard about it was because WordPress was big enough to make some noise about it. That's not okay. That's really not okay. WordPress followed Apple's terms of service to the letter, did not include any language or any visibility for the app, for WordPress services that you could purchase outside of the WordPress app. And Apple still bounced their app because they wanted to force WordPress to give them a 30% cut of services that Apple doesn't have anything to do with, just to have access to iOS users, just to have access to iPhone owners on their platform. That alone is horrifically scummy. And you have to wonder how many smaller app developers are having to fight Apple on similar issues. So, keep an eye on this. And also please read the rest of the CNBC report. If anything, just to kind of condense a 450-page judicial document from the House of Representatives. But this is going to be the political angling moving into 2021. And when we look at how do we regulate some of these companies, this is the first step. This is the first step of what will probably be a decade-long conversation in the courts. And it's happening right now. As if we're not living through enough history. This too happening right now. And Root Night 5, I looked at the data in the past that showed some markets like Japan have Apple hitting almost 70% market share. Woo! Raymond, Apple was absolutely incorrect with WordPress, and they had to apologize by replacing the app. WordPress did not include in-app purchases. That is part of Apple's terms of service. You are not allowed to mention alternative purchasing in your app. And you can't even disclose what the app cuts are if there are in-app purchases. You can't tell your consumers, by the way, Apple takes a 30% cut. Apple will bounce your app just for notifying your consumers. So if you donate to charity through an app on an iPhone, Apple takes 30% of your charitable donation with very little exception to that rule. So WordPress included no mention of the services that you can pay for in the app. And that is part of Apple's terms of service. Apple held the app and said, you need to include the products and services that you can charge for if you want us to greenlight this app, so that we can take a cut. And WordPress said, no, you don't have anything to do with these services. And we followed your rules in not telling consumers. And Apple held their app hostage to extract money that WordPress was not charging through the app. That is absolutely incorrect. That is a violation of FTC guidelines because it violates Apple's own terms of service and how they're saying they're going to interact with app developers. And WordPress played by the rules. So then WordPress made enough noise about it that Apple, re-examined their stance on the app. And wouldn't you know it, after they went through a lengthy appeals process, yeah, we made a mistake with WordPress by trying to force them to include in-app purchases that WordPress didn't want to include on the app. And now iOS users can use the exact same version of the WordPress app that was originally submitted. And no one needs to examine beyond that. No one needs to, raise a stink or bring the FTC. Let's not get the government involved. Apple does that kind of stuff, and it's really scummy. So, sorry, I got to take another stretch. I know no one cued me for it, but we got to move on. That's enough. So, I'm going to talk about something real quick here, just because it was kind of a surprise to me. And it seemed to be kind of a surprise to a bunch of scientists. Oh, Matt Tyler gave me a stretch redeem. Thanks, Matt. I already took it. I'm going to get... that's good. So, based on our sort of current understanding of disease transmission, I feel like this one is just kind of an important story to sort of spread around. Hopefully the idea of this goes viral, puns intended. When we're talking about this global situation, and I'm just going to go ahead and say COVID-19, and now this video just got demonetized on YouTube. We had an idea of germ theory where, say you're holding up a phone, you're using your really cool fancy smartphone, had kind of an idea of how long a germ or germs could live on that phone based on other diseases like the flu. It turns out COVID is a pretty persistent little bugger, in that it's more persistent than we kind of originally thought. So I'm going to go ahead and link. I mean, there are a bunch of news agencies that covered this, and I think I caught it on Engadget. I think I caught it first on Engadget, but I'm going to link directly to Virology Journal for the show notes this week. The effect of temperature on persistence of SARS-CoV-2 on common surfaces. The rate at which COVID-19 has spread throughout the globe has been alarming. While the role of fomite transmission is not yet fully understood, precise data on the environmental stability is required to determine the risks of fomite transmission from contaminated surfaces. This is just cutting to the results. Survival rates of SARS-CoV-2 were determined at different temperatures, and D values, Z values, and half-life were calculated. Let me just cut to the actual length here. With initial viral loads broadly equivalent to the highest, I don't know what that word is, titres, excreted by infectious patients, viable virus was isolated for up to 28 days at 20 degrees Celsius from common surfaces such as glass, stainless steel, and paper and polymer banknotes. Conversely, infectious virus survived less than 24 hours at 40 degrees Celsius on some surfaces. The conclusion, these findings demonstrate SARS-CoV-2 can remain infectious for significantly longer periods than generally considered possible. These results could be used to inform improved risk mitigation procedures to prevent the fomite spread of COVID-19. So, by comparison, under similar situations, under similar temperature measurements, the flu virus, I mean, again, this changes from year to year because the flu mutates pretty rapidly, but the flu virus is generally understood to have not a half-life, but a totality of around 16 days, 17 days. And it looks like COVID, under optimal conditions, can survive 10 days longer than that. So your phone is disgusting. You need to wash your phone, and don't be gross. You know, again, when we go out in public and we touch other surfaces and stuff gets smeared from one to another, I feel like when it comes to the current disease that we're all dealing with right now, touch transmission is a concern, but obviously we're more concerned about the sort of aerosol, the particles in the air being the bigger infection point when we're looking at different populations of people. But it's good to know that, you know, hey, you touch something at a grocery store and that had stuff on it. And then, oh, no, I just need to check a text message on my phone. Oh, I need to take this phone call. Let me rub my phone. Wash your phone. Be careful in how you interact. Maybe get a smartwatch. I have a review on a really fancy smartwatch that lasts for 3 days. That's very surprising, and that's good information to put out there just to help encourage good behavior, washing your hands, not touching things you don't need to touch, and then also detail your phone. We interact with these things so much, and again, for living on glass and steel and metal, I really expected it to not be as robust a virus as it's turning out to be. From Pacanator56, I always Clorox wipe my phone when I get back home, but for a year now, I never really use my phone at home unless I get a call or text. If I do touch it, I use my hand. I think you say wash my hand right away afterwards, mainly because I'm a minor germaphobe. I feel like those are some good patterns of behavior that more people should be adopting. Maybe not with the same urgency that you might be describing as a minor germaphobe. The only thing I would say is, especially as you're going through to wash and clean different gadgets, different phones, I would be a little careful with how aggressively you push cleaning solutions into the crevices of your phones. It's going to be a balancing act, right? You really want to clean out all them nooks and crannies, but then also you're using some pretty stringent chemicals that can degrade the seals and the water resistance and the protections of your phone. So balance, a little balance, but getting in there and cleaning and wiping and clearing all that stuff out, probably a good idea. And Gary the Fireman, I have a UV light phone cleaner. I mean, again, we're going to have an entire ecosystem of accessories and products and all kind of commenting on the lifestyle aspect of using these things. Like our whole social relationship to each other and to the products and gadgets and credit card terminals and ATMs and gas stations, everything's going to tweak. Everything's going to change just a little. JJ48, or use a headset. I'm so sad. I mean, like, again, I love my TicWatch, but I'm still so sad that my focals by North, I'm so sad that those are dead now, because they had the little ring, and the ring was better water resistanted and was sort of like designed to be washed as you wash your hands. And it was so great for the couple months that they still worked during this whole situation, where I could go out and get like almost everything I needed off of my phone at eye level. And I didn't have to touch anything near my face. I only touched the ring. Back when I was wearing the focals, I was also going out with gloves on, just because we didn't know what like the big concerns were for the spread of this disease. So under a glove, I was using this little ring joystick to just scan through the entire user interface of the focals, and I could keep everything up. Voice, speech to text for replies, and I never had to touch my phone. I'm so sad that doesn't work anymore, because it was great. It was phenomenal. But yeah, so one of the things that's been kind of fun to play with on the Pixel 5, Google also sent some Pixel Buds. And much for the same reasons why I really like LG Tone neckbands, some great interactions that don't require you to handle everything. You can kind of mitigate some of that germ spread by not touching all of your tech every time you go out. LFA Reviews subscribed at tier 1. Wow, that's so awesome, man. Thank you so much for, again, continuing to support production on this channel. And everyone, if you're not following LFA, you probably hate your ears. And that's okay. That's okay if you absolutely despise your ability to hear things and you never ever want to hear good quality music. That's totally your prerogative. If you are that person who like just hates hearing good audio, do not follow LFA Reviews. Do not watch Jeff's reviews, because you will be exposed to content about really good earbuds, and that's not you. You don't like that. I'm worried that my satirical take on that might be lost on some people, and where I'm genuinely trying to get more folks to subscribe to Jeff's channel. I'm already working news block longer than I intended to. Let me kick out these last two stories and get into the Reddit plug. Let me get this out of the way here. How would you feel about YouTube becoming a shopping hub? Because there are rumors that that's what Google is looking to do. The company is reportedly testing features that will allow you to buy products directly from videos. This is from Engadget, written up by Igor Bonifasic. I have no idea how to say your last name, Igor. I don't even know if I'm saying your first name correctly. At some point in your YouTube watching career, you probably dug into the description of a video to tap on an Amazon referral link. Whether you're into tech, photography, gaming, or any other hobby, most channels use those links as a way to generate additional revenue on top of the money they make from ads. For its part, YouTube has been content to make most of its revenue off of ads and subscriptions, but that could change soon. So Bloomberg is reporting that they're going to be teaming up. We could be testing a collaboration with Shopify, where Google might start building in retail links for you to purchase directly through, say, cards or the rest of the YouTube interface. And I would imagine it would be very similar. Like on YouTube, I have like a little merch strip, and that comes from Teespring. Go under my video and you can shop a Megapickle mug, one of my awesome t-shirts, the new line of Save the Headphone Jack, Endangered Species stuff. This is all just a merch plug. That's the main reason why I wanted to talk about this. But let's say, I'm reviewing a really cool smartwatch and you think, hey, that could actually be kind of cool. Let me check that out. And a card popped out and you could click on that card, or it's in the top line of the description as like a rich panel with a little image that you can click on. I'm generally okay with that. Again, my YouTube metrics and my YouTube revenue, not great these days, surprisingly enough, for the number of videos I put out. So anything that kind of reinforces that, I learned about this, or I appreciated your commentary on a product, there's an affiliate code or a promo link or just a direct link to buy, I'm kind of fine. The only thing I worry about is, like, one of the reasons why I haven't dug into like YouTube subscriptions as aggressively is it would very much alter my relationship with a platform like Patreon. And I haven't fully worked out all of the mechanics. Like, I can offer this as a Patreon perk. It's different to offer it on YouTube, and that complicates like the pricing tiers that I would want to work with between YouTube and Patreon. And I feel like those should somehow be fair, but because I can't fully make them that way, it's prevented me from just kick and go on YouTube subscriptions. My fear would be if they start instituting, direct links or shopping links or some kind of YouTube store, what is their relationship going to be with Amazon affiliate, B&H affiliate, or just other promo links that we might use on different products and services? And if anything gets in the way of that, then I'm going to keep it off, because YouTube does not back me up enough to put all of my affiliate and monetization eggs in their basket. Sorry, I'm way behind on the chat, so I'm trying to kind of catch up here. Dave Burns, I'm not surprised about YouTube because all of their content is just glorified commercials now. LFA reviews, hashtag some merch guy. I'm just saying, these are like the most delicious coffee mugs you could drink a beverage out of. I mean, I'm not saying that's an FDA certified claim, but I'm just saying some guy said on the internet that these were the best. And so, Pakoston, this is exactly the concern I have. After Gleam links were banned on YouTube and other giveaways, the next one in line are the affiliate links. So that's my big concern. I'm already putting out a higher quality version of every video I make on Twitch. And maybe that's where the main videos will need to live, and YouTube will serve as just free server space for those folks who do occasionally discover my videos. So I don't know. Warhead laughing his ass off. FDA certified. I mean, I can't make that claim, but people on the internet are talking that if you want a delicious coffee mug, these are the best. All right. And just wrapping this up, I think this is, again, it's another thing that we just need to keep our eye on. So I'm not going to detail this one too hard, but this is coming by way of WCCF Tech. AMD is gearing up to acquire Xilinx. I have no idea how to pronounce that company. Xilinx for $30 billion. Xilinx manufactures programmable chips for wireless networks, and its acquisition will provide AMD a solid foothold in an industry that is currently in flux, with carriers injecting billions of dollars in the telecommunications sphere in order to expand the coverage of the next-gen 5G wireless networks. Xilinx has become an important node in this endeavor. So I'm very positive on this move. For a lot of the things that we've been talking about, AMD versus Intel, I feel like the x86 processor market is gonna get rocked over the next couple years as we look at ARM taking over a lot of consumer gear. So NVIDIA buying up ARM makes a ton of sense as an end run around AMD and Intel. I was very disappointed in Intel backing off their modem and wireless radio game, because everything is supposed to be interconnecting. And just because Qualcomm is the big dog in that space, we want more competition. And there are a bunch of products that wouldn't have So think of Internet of Things, home automation, stuff like that. You could put that Intel logo on it, and it could still be a wireless connection. It wouldn't necessarily need to be phones. But everything is going to be kind of tied together this way. AMD getting into this space, and for a lot of money, for a $30 billion acquisition, is a very smart play, in my opinion, at diversifying their portfolio and looking at ways that they can kind of entrench and root themselves in the future of not just computing, but of all telecommunications. So from JJ4884, I'm not sure if I heard your thoughts in the NVIDIA and ARM deal. I mean, we kind of talked a little bit about it on the podcast when that deal went down. This article actually tries to make that like the comparison point. Oh, AMD is looking to buy up wireless infrastructure because NVIDIA bought ARM. Like they don't have anything to do with each other. It's just as soon as you say AMD, there needs to be like a knee-jerk NVIDIA. It's part of your article for SEO or something like that. I'm very concerned because NVIDIA has a vested interest in a certain catalog of hardware and services. But I also feel like they're a performance-oriented company. They could be looking at server models with ARM servers and graphics processing units that tying it together could be a boon for consumers. I just worry that, that NVIDIA having influence over where ARM chipset design goes could have an effect on competition. That's always going to be, again, if there's any word that I'm going to get knee-jerk twitchy about, it's going to be competition. So I feel like there are absolutely present market concerns over any kind of major deal like that. What's funny is like I'm a little less concerned with the AMD looking at wireless. Like that doesn't, I'm trying to find like where am I upset there, and I can't find it. AMD sort of, especially this AMD that seems to be refining better. Lisa Su heading up this company has just been a monster CEO for directing the path of AMD to improve their products, to iterate more aggressively, to get that consumer mindshare cooking again. And a wireless component company under that kind of tutelage, under that kind of shepherding, I think is a good play. And so if there's a room in there for AMD to invest intelligently on wireless infrastructure and give Qualcomm, Nokia, Ericsson a run for their money, I think that benefits consumers and other corporations like carriers. I think that benefits us a lot. So I'm hoping, I'm hoping that we see something really cool come out of this, but it won't be like sexy front page tech. It won't be, like, oh, your new laptop is a Xilinx AMD. Like that's not something that we're really going to say. But Route 95, exactly this kind of thing. Buying Xilinx would mean AMD could integrate the Wi-Fi modems on the SoC, which means great battery savings in laptops, which is why we're all a little frustrated this year with Qualcomm carving the modem out of their chipsets to increase component costs and force component purchases that we probably shouldn't have had to. And again, you look back at the Snapdragon 855s and how LTE performance didn't get better going from the 855 to the 865. Power management got worse, but who was going to fight Qualcomm on that kind of component strategy? Because there's no competition. So I'm not cranky about a Microsoft Surface Duo using an 855. If you need to save space on a radically thin design, you probably shouldn't go with an 865 and separate modem component. So, and Dank Pikmin God was here. Why did Qualcomm separate the modem? I'm very cynical about this. I would not take my opinion as any kind of market fact. My opinion is you've got a chipset with a modem built in. The LTE modem has been wonderfully refined and is very power efficient. How do you force manufacturers to adopt these new 5G modems? You pull the LTE modem out of the chipset and you staple it to the 5G component, which is separate. And if you want if you don't want your phone to have a modem, you can buy an 865. But if you want an LTE powered device, you got to buy this new modem. Oh, and wouldn't you know? I mean, you can buy this new modem and just use LTE, but the hardware's there. You can use the 5G too, but it comes at a higher component cost. So that's my guess. If I'm being an overly cynical market analyst, is to force the sale of 5G modems, you remove the LTE modem from the chipset. And Steve and JJ, thank you for giving me. Actually, I'm going to drain this coffee mug and move on to mug number 2. All right, let's plug the subreddit real quick. Every podcast has a subreddit. My subreddit is focused on trying to promote content from creators we think or we feel deserve more attention. If you go to reddit.com/r/glowingrectangles, you will find a growing community of people submitting content from a much broader and much more diverse collection of content creators. It's a tech-focused site, but that's pretty broad. I mean, we've had some high-voted articles on things like robot vacuums and kitchen tech and a variety of products that aren't the most YouTube popular. So you go and look at your sort of list of front page on YouTube, and then you come to Glowing Rectangles, you're going to see a totally different tech conversation at play. I'm very proud of this community for kind of building up a roster of contributors that is a lot of it's stuff I would never have found if I just left it to YouTube to serve me content. And Elevator Reviews, the subreddit has been on fire with amazing content. Genuinely. I have a plea, though. I'm going to get back to that. So, top stories on reddit.com/r/glowingrectangles. A number 1, the top video of the week, LG Wing review, 2 screens to a T from Issa Does Tech. I love Issa's style because she actually focuses on style. I love that in the middle of her review, she's taking no guff from Specs Nerds, where she talks about her experiences using the phone and says, my experience is using the phone. I'm good. And then moves on with the rest of the review. It's bold, it's adorable, and it's to the point. Because I'm getting real not thrilled with a color of tech commentary where it's just chipset junkies. I need the Snapdragon 865. What do you do on your phone? Oh, like, you don't need the power. You're only doing this because of some idea of, I need to have the bestest. Do you use it? No. Issa is very fun at that kind of examination as well. But yeah, she was one of the early explorers playing with the LG Wing. I hope I can play with one at some point soon too. But if you want the scoop on sort of her longer term usage of the phone, I think she shares some great thoughts there. Then another interesting video that kind of came out of nowhere, Tech Tablets, 346,000 subscribers. But this was, I believe it was an unlisted video that he just shared. This is sort of a personal vlog, the truth about tech YouTube #rant. And he shares some of his experiences in working with different PR companies, of having to handle different requirements for embargoes, and then just like how ugly the monetization on all of this has gotten, where I think a lot of us feel there's sort of a gamed aspect of tech reviews right now. My channel does not perform well for monetization. I'm very sort of upfront about what my issues have been, why I started a Patreon, why I do this podcast on Twitch. So it was kind of interesting to see someone with a channel almost 3 times my size share some similar concerns and how we have, access to some of these tech toys and what hoops we have to jump through. And then sometimes when PR decides like, you're just not worth it, we're gonna try and make sure that only, a certain kind of commentary is going to be delivered on our products. It's interesting. And again, it's very heartfelt. This is not, someone just reading a script. He's out, I think, in his backyard, just kind of talking to a selfie camera. It's very personal, and I would definitely give it a watch. Then number 3 from Adam Reviews Tech, 765 subscribers. When was the last time a top video was recommended to you on YouTube from a channel with 700 subscribers? Galaxy Fold in 2020, my experience, are foldables the future? A longer term look back at the Galaxy Fold took the number 3 spot. And then wrapping up the rest of the videos, the top 10, Poetic Wiz, 107 subscribers, talking about the Apple Watch Series 6. Someone trying to use the Palm phone as a daily driver. Team Vry, 830 subscribers looking at the Pixel 4a, taking another look back at a great budget phone. Tech PhD, Spectacular Gadgets, also unboxing the Pixel 5. Tech PhD looking back at the iPhone 11, and TK Bay's video on our challenge, swapping the Galaxy Note Ultra for the Microsoft Surface Duo. And we had a great conversation just kind of chatting out what our strategy was going to be for this week, this year's challenge. And Matt Tyler saying hashtag TK Our Bay. I don't know. I'm actually in the video with him, so I'm pretty sure it's hashtag TK My Bay. I'm just saying. I feel like we're besties. So, reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles, huge community, but I actually have a small plea, especially for folks watching this live stream. It has been amazing watching the growth of this community. One of the things that helped relaunch this subreddit was using the service IFTTT, if this, then that. I had roughly 20 auto triggers set to publish new videos as content creators would put them out. IFTTT has recently changed their service. So now it's a paid service, and you're only allowed to have like 3 of these auto publishing or auto triggers on your account before you need to pay. And it's really an expense for this subreddit that I'm not interested in entertaining. So of those channels, it was channels like Erica Griffin, Bored at Work, TK Bay, Nothing But Tech, NBTY88. I think I had Lover of Tech for the Love of Tech, and just a number, just a huge number of medium-sized channels that would auto-populate because of this auto-publishing on IFTTT. So those are not going to be automatically sent to the subreddit anymore. And I kind of need your help out there in the community to continue supporting those channels. You know, if a Flossie Carter puts out a video and you think it deserves more attention, it's going to find a good reception here on our Glowing Rectangles. And as you submit these videos from these other content creators, you build Reddit cred. You know, they've got this thing called karma on Reddit, and it allows you to participate on Reddit better the higher your karma score is. So it does deliver at least a little bit of a tangible benefit to you. But beyond that, it's just continuing to further the mission of this community, is to continue supporting content creators we feel deserve more attention. Tomorrow, I'm going to be on All About Android. I love joining that crew for a conversation with Flo and Jason and Ron. That used to be one of my triggers. Every time All About Android would put out a new podcast, it would get automatically shared to Glowing Rectangles. So now there are opportunities for more people to contribute without all of my auto triggers kind of populating the subreddit. But we really do need that engaged participation. We really do need folks looking around. And it's okay if a channel has, 1 million subscribers. We feel like they're probably going to be easily found on a much, much larger subreddit, but it's the medium-sized and smaller channels that really need that active participation. If you want good content to continue being produced and you don't want to see everyone paywalling, share a Tech Alter, especially his Friday roundups. Share a Board at Work. Share BW1. Share... I mean, like, there are just so many channels I'm subscribed to. I'm trying to, remember all of them at once. But that helps. It helps this community. It helps your own Reddit credit, your Reddit karma score. But it also furthers a conversation. And that's the most important aspect of something like this. This is for real. This is a real community that's being built up grassroots style. It's not overly gamed with any kind of SEO metrics or anything. And we're finding that these creators, many under 1,000 subscribers, are finding a bit more audience just from being regularly shared on a platform that's easy for search. So I'm putting this out there as the plug, but also as the plea. The health of glowing rectangles and the future of this community, in addition to contributing and supporting content that you enjoy, it's in your hands. And I'm very positive on the folks that are in this live chat and helping us spread the word. Saeed, Ted, has been sharing the daily recaps on who's been leading the subreddit. I mean, every little bit of that helps in sharing a link, bringing more people to this community and engaging in conversation. We're seeing more upvotes. We're seeing more submissions. We're seeing more comments. And that's healthy. That's what we hope to see as this project grows. So reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. Content creators who deserve more attention, writers, video producers, it's up to you. I mean, it's not me anymore. It's literally not me populating the subreddit anymore. It's up to you. Matt Tyler is asking, can I add the Reddit link on the Across the Podcast? Of course, you can put that link anywhere. But I'd also agree with Q3 Becker. Saeed should be on Across the Podcast. I would absolutely. Saeed runs his own, like, is it weekly? I think he does I think he does a Friday stream, and he's reading news articles and putting together content, and it's a great conversation. So Matt and Sam, I would put Saeed on the list. I know you've got a pretty full calendar of creator interviews, but he'd be a good one to chat with also. From JJ4884, I found Juan from Pocket now, and I got him on AAA. JJ's been like behind the scenes trying to like, hey Juan, maybe you should chat with Patrick Norton about this kind of a thing. You know, like, I think in a past life, JJ might have been a good talent agent. It's good times. So Matt Tyler, oh, you said it. I'll reach out. Done. Yes. So subreddit has never been healthier. More opportunities for more engagement and more participation. And I cannot thank those of you enough who have been submitting and producing and replying and upvoting that content. So moving right along, real quick, like OnePlus 8T, how are we feeling about OnePlus? So right here next to me, I have the OnePlus 8, which at the very beginning of the year, I felt was a reasonable collection of pros and cons. It's essentially the OnePlus 7T with a different camera arrangement, but the newer chipset to get us the 5Gs. It's so funny to think at the beginning of 2020 how much more expensive a handful of these new phones with 5G were. This phone was way cheaper in India, but you didn't have to like mess with different carrier versions like we did in the United States. And I'm also just kind of happy about the fact that I've got I forget what they call it. It's not Aura. Is it Aura Glow? The really fancy, vibrant, rainbowy, reflective back. This is like, again, alongside an LG Velvet. These phones are some of the prettiest engineering gadgets of the year. And where do I have it? I also have the OnePlus 8 Pro. So this is my 8 Pro. This is my OnePlus 8. You can totally tell like which one's which because they're almost physically identical. But OnePlus 8T. What if we could split the difference between the more streamlined hardware of the OnePlus 8, add some of the camera improvements from the 8 Pro, and arrive at a lower cost overall? I mean, I'm not on their super pre-embargo, like, here's all the information that you can read up on the OnePlus 8T. But OnePlus themselves put out sort of a first look design video on the 8T, which I'm not going to just play because I just want to get to that right there. And that's our sort of first little mini glimpse of the OnePlus 8T. And there's been some leaks, like from Ishan Agarwal. I don't know how to say your name. I'm so sorry, Ishan. But looking at two different color renders, where we're going with more of the domino side-mounted camera assembly. I'm not thrilled about that. We've got the little hole punch here in the upper left-hand corner on the screen for the selfie camera, but I kind of feel like this is gonna be okay. So here's what I'm hoping. Not what I feel like. Here's what I'm hoping. I'd kind of like OnePlus to ditch the standard version and Pro version and just focus on OnePlus number. And if you're going to do a T, then you only have to do OnePlus number T in the second half of the year. And in the middle of the year, we get a refined mid-ranger like the Nord. I would love for OnePlus to whittle all of this down to a 3-phone strategy over the course of the year. You launch as aggressively at the beginning of the year as you can when the new chipset is out. You launch the mid-ranger in the middle of the year to compete against like the Pixel A series. And then at the end of the year, you get your refined, this was all the best tech kind of whittled down into another cost savings gadget at the end of the year. And that would be my hope. I really haven't liked the OnePlus number, OnePlus Pro, different regions get different phones. Then at the end of the year, we get a OnePlus number T and a OnePlus number T Pro, and then different regions get different phones. And if you're mixing in a Nord, this gets messy. And I don't like a OnePlus that has like 6 or 7 phone launches. I think that's too many. That's an Oppo strategy that I'd really, really prefer OnePlus not entertain. JJ saying Agarwal. I just broke that back in Kuala Lumpur. Nick Fell saying rumors the 8T is going to be $700 with all the specs. McCorker 3. Michael, Mon must have those OnePlus buds. I do not. I really wanted to play with the OnePlus buds. I was very appreciative of OnePlus still shipping me out a couple phones, and I have very much enjoyed the OnePlus 8 Pro. I have no idea what is rumbling right outside my window, but it sounds like a helicopter is right out there. That's crazy. We haven't had leaf blowers for weeks, right? And now, I don't know, maybe I'm just going to have jetpacks out there. Yes. So, this is my hope. My hope is a OnePlus 8T at an aggressive price performance, catching us up on 120 hertz refresh display, even if it's only 1080p. I'm fine sacrificing rated IP68. I'm fine giving up on reverse wireless charging. But I'm telling you, folks, if you've been sleeping on the OnePlus 8 Pro camera, you've been missing one of the best smartphone shooters of the year. I did a full camera deep dive where I'm showing you raw performance that can kind of keep pace with some phones' night modes. And OnePlus has been aggressive on making their nightscape, their night mode, look like you can turn everything into daylight. That 48 megapixel sensor on the OnePlus 8 Pro is stunning. It is, I want to say it's maybe the best smartphone camera sensor currently available on any phone. When you weigh up all of the pros, the cons, the benefits, the compromises, the resolution, the pixel binning, the HDR capabilities, OnePlus's camera software is always a little twitchy, but that hardware is gorgeous. And it's a shame that folks kind of just glossed over it, or it's 48 megapixels and other phones have like 64. Completely missing the point. Completely missing what makes that camera sensor unique and what makes it so good. From Hakey, you went from leaf blowers to leaf choppers. Instead of having leaf blowers, we're just going to hover a helicopter over your house and the blades are just blow all of the leaves out way faster. So if I can get the streamlined, this is the OnePlus 8. If I can get the more streamlined model of the OnePlus 8, but you're throwing on the OnePlus 8 Pro camera, I feel like that's a good combo and a good compromise. And if that phone's hitting around 700, that is wonderful competition against Pixel 5, the Galaxy S20 FE, and I think it puts OnePlus right back in line with some of the price performance expectations that we've had for the brand. So I'm very anxious. I really hope that this is delivered and executed well. From Nick Fell, if you remember how the Xperia 6-month strategy went, I wonder how long OnePlus can keep this up. Yeah, I just feel like when we started moving to dual phone launches twice a year, OnePlus backed off their software strategy. The lag on older phones getting updates has gotten a little bit longer. We've moved to every other month for software updates and security patches and bug fixes. I feel a more streamlined OnePlus feels like OnePlus. It's not, oh, I want to get a phone half the price. It's not the price. It's focus, streamline, speed, aggressive iteration. And I feel a OnePlus that's launching 3 phones a year is probably more nimble than a OnePlus that's launching 6. So that's why I'm hopeful that OnePlus 8T is the next step in streamlining their strategy. I understand that because they've kind of they aren't properly Oppo, but they've kind of reintegrated with BBK and Oppo as partners under an umbrella of different parts and accessories and manufacturing and distribution. But I still think it behooves, it's the last tenet of the enthusiast flavor of the brand that would make me excited, because even Apple is putting out like 4 phones this year. The SE, the iPhone 12, probably a 12 Max, and like a 12 Pro. So many phones. And it would be nice to have like OnePlus 9, OnePlus Nord 2, OnePlus 9T. How simple would that be? I mean, just how clean would that be? And we know this is OnePlus's vision of what their phone should be. And then it gets refined in the second half of the year. Whenever you buy a OnePlus, you're buying the best version of what they think their phone should be. And that's it. Would make me really excited. Again, from Nick Bell, feels like OnePlus is ultimately entirely a marketing fiction. OnePlus was always Oppo. It was just marketing that they used to differentiate themselves. Yes. I mean, from a more global look at how brands are created under these conglomerate umbrellas, but one of the reasons why OnePlus became such a sweetheart brand was because of how they targeted tech enthusiasts, how they worked a very streamlined version of the phone. It was an appropriate number of compromises to reach a certain price performance. And then I think at the time, especially in Android land, once we were getting around to the OnePlus 3T, they were working a conversation on streamlined performance that very few Android manufacturers could could match. At the heyday of the worst, like, heavy launcher TouchWiz style skins, OnePlus really locked their enthusiast fan base by offering performance that was kind of unmatched. And then from there, a longevity of software support that other manufacturers also are only recently committing to. We kind of got on OnePlus. That's what I want to see return to this label, is that notion of streamlining, focusing, and keeping that community in mind while they also make a mass market pivot. That to me would be kind of nice. And exactly because of stuff like this from Pecanator 56, OnePlus has some serious competition with the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE, but it comes down to personally software preference at the end of the day, One UI versus Oxygen OS. And yes, I mean, one of the reasons why I'm so hyped for Pixel 5 isn't because it wins any spec races. It doesn't win any spec sheet fights, but it's a targeted, considered product at a certain demographic, at a certain category of device. And I feel like it coexists really well with the idea of a OnePlus 8T and a Galaxy S20 FE. Like, I feel like we have room here for different options and different flavors of products. It's not like you say, well, like, oh, I've got $50,000 to spend on a car. I guess there can only be one winner. You know, do you want a roadster? Do you want a convertible? Do you want a sports car? Do you want a hatchback? Do you want a wagon? Do you want a minivan? Do you want an SUV? I want, you know, like a Pixel 5 kind of feels like a zippy little 4-cylinder roadster opposite, you know, a Galaxy S20, which has more of a V8, you know, like there's still a reason why I might want that zippy little roadster as opposed to having like an LG V60, which is like a dually diesel truck of a phone. That's what I'm hoping to entertain, and where I think OnePlus makes a very strong argument for their products against the competition. I don't want them to lose that part of their corporate DNA. Even though we know they're borrowing from Oppo's parts bin, there can still be a different flavor of what that label represents. Excuse me, if you compare a OnePlus label to an Oppo label, is what I hope. All right. So, real quick, I want to close out with Pixel 5. We're getting to 10:30 in the AM. Oh, let me pause that. I don't want that video playing. I wanted to mention this. We had the AMD story in the news block because of their recent acquisition, but obviously the big news for AMD was a huge shot in the desktop and laptop processor segment. And so I don't cover computer building news as much in this podcast because, I mean, if you want to follow that commentary, those are the kinds of videos that I try and save for Newegg. PC building, gamer PCs, the hardware. I mean, I work a lot with Trisha Hirschberger just on helping them manage a calendar of what we think are going to be cool topics for systems builders and PC components, graphics cards, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I did want to bring it up just a little bit here because I'm all nerdy Twitter-pated about an AMD that is brutally competitive against Intel in the x86 processor space. And so AMD showed off their new line, the ZEN 3 generation of CPUs. Their sort of flagship product is the Ryzen 9 5900X, but they're touting significant single core performance improvements, power and thermal management that I am very surprised by. And they're no longer just sort of generically price competitive against Intel CPUs. They're now kind of leading in a lot of categories, but these most recent improvements that they're trying to talk about kind of chip away at the general idea of Intel superiority. So over the last couple of years, I really liked the 9900K. I've got an Intel Nook behind my TV with sort of the mobile version of that chip, and it's a monster performer. But this 10th gen, and we're getting into Intel's 11th gen, but like the 10900K, you would look at a certain collection of benchmarks where Intel's optimizations really helped them hold court, really helped them lead for a number of generations. And you could always point like, well, AMD's multi-core was better for these things, but hey man, if you really need to go balls to the wall on this one app, you got to go Intel. The Ryzen 9, this Zen 3, or the 5000 series of AMD Ryzen processors, all seem hard targeted at, we're going to win all of these multi-core benchmarks like we have been for the last couple years, and we're also going to kick Intel in the gonads on these very specific benchmarks that people use to review our CPUs to show Intel's usually superior. And we're going to hit that double whammy at much lower power requirements. So an Intel, I believe an Intel Core i9 is rated around 125 watts, but that's just under standard operating. And under boost clock, where the chip can kind of short-term boost itself and overclock itself for like a very specific task for a very narrow window, I believe Core i9s can close in on 250 watts. Please correct me. I probably have that not quite correct. AMD's top of the line $800 CPU, the 5950X, is 16 cores, 32 threads, 4.9 gigahertz boost speed, and AMD is saying it's going to stay at 105 watts, just like all the rest of their high-end, medium-tier, and entry-level Ryzens, which is crazy. That is, again, it's not just, oh, well, we kind of can catch Intel on some things if you look at a price tag versus this kind of performance, or like if you overclock and you put a whole bunch more, you use a whole bunch more juice, you can kind of get up to this performance level. Just out of the box, uses less power than Intel 10th gen, matches or beats them on a number of these Intel specific benchmarks where Intel usually wins, is comparable in price to some of those flagship Intel products, and uses less power. That was the exciting part of all of this. So on desktops, the 3000 series, the 3900 and the X and the XTs were desktop parts. Then there was a Ryzen 4000 series, which started showing up in laptops. And it would seem that AMD has learned a bit about how to refine their fabrication process for laptops, and they're just carrying that over into the desktop space. I feel we're at sort of the I feel like we're sort of at the end of the peak enthusiast desktop market, where x86 still rules for all of this content creation and gaming and what's really exciting. There's going to be a future of ARM processors and streaming services and server side, computational benefits. This is kind of like the big last hurrah of x86 before we start to see other products compete with the traditional markets of AMD and Intel processors. And to have AMD this competitive and leading in so many categories against Intel, where Intel has tremendous resources, it's just really exciting. My buzzword is competition. I'm very excited to see this kind of competition. And I might have to rebuild my PC with one of these new Ryzen 9s. I have a Threadripper, and now I'm getting itchy. Like, oh, but maybe I want to do something new. And Nick Felg, just kind of refining what I was saying. So TDP is a measure more of thermal output than power usage, and even that's kind of not true. Quoted TDPs from manufacturers are fairly useless as they're never measured the same regardless. An i9 10900K will use 300 watts when fully loaded at full boost speeds. So yeah. I mean, again, we want to see what AMD is using as a measure. That is absolutely accurate. We would want to see under what conditions AMD is looking at for their TDP measurements. But I mean, from Zen 2 to the Intel Core 9th gen cores, I think we did see a trend towards Intel needing a bit more power and having to handle higher thermal loads to properly best AMD in those price performance measurements. All right, Jermaine is saying I should stretch, and Aditya and Matt are telling me to check my posture. Oh man, my neck is really clicky today. I feel like one of my shoulders just has this little hitch. Like I gotta like click my shoulder there. Juan Competition Bagnell. I like that. I didn't need Carlos as a middle name. Competition is my middle name. And Gary the Fireman, AMD is the chip of choice at Lucasfilms, apparently. Matt, Juan just broke his damn neck. Nah. Although I probably shouldn't, like... Ooh, I got another one. We're going to make this a terrible ASMR podcast with all of my creaky joints. So who wants to talk about the Pixel 5? Because I can't say a whole lot about it. I can show you I have it. Well, let me make sure. So here is the Google Pixel 5. I absolutely love what Google is doing with the backplate on this phone. It is very refreshing having a phone that's not another glass-on-glass sandwich or is trying to trick the consumer into seeing shiny with plastic. Like, I think that's fine to have a plastic back. I'm not so torn on this, trying to make every phone look like it's glass even when it's plastic. There have been some comparisons in conversations like I've had on Twitter about what Google is doing here. Hold on, I'm going to shift my camera. You're going to see more of my lab there because I'm right-handed. Look, this is easier. And I don't have to like put the phone like right next to my eyeball. There have been some sort of comparisons or conversations about the frame and the metal back of this phone is all kind of covered in a material surface coating. It's much nicer execution than when we saw that on the LG G5. I think we all remember the controversy of like, well, I could scratch at the G5 and it's more of like a primer coating and then it flakes off. It's not really a metal backed phone. It kind of was, but LG was kind of trying to work a material coating that wasn't metal on the outside. And then nerds had to debate that ad nauseum. This feels so much better than that. And I feel like what they've done is they've probably incorporated coils or some kind of section of this so that you could still have not only wireless charging, but reverse wireless charging. I feel like that's probably what they were going for. So you've got this matte finish uniform back. It's got this beautiful kind of almost like marble texture to it. And I hate that, well, it feels really nice in the hand. But it's refreshing to have something that's not glass on glass. It's just refreshing to have something that is a little different. The only other thing, I'm still under a fairly strict embargo. This is a review unit, a hashtag gift from Google sent from hashtag Team Pixel. And they said, you can show that you have the phone. I can't really talk about any of the new services or any of the new features or perks of the device, but I can also show you I'm just rocking a super simple home screen right there. And the rest of this is just sort of ancillary commentary that I feel like has been fairly well covered. Again, you can go to GSM Arena and read the specs, but I feel like one of the important things to talk about on a Pixel 5 is just how it's almost exactly the same shell as the Pixel 4a. The Pixel 4a is ever so slightly, like as my fingertips can feel differences, is ever so slightly narrower and just that teeny tiny little bit shorter than the Pixel 5. So I'm pretty sure the Pixel 5 is going to be one of the smallest 5G capable phones of 2020. And that's also kind of refreshing. I've been on Sony's, like, I mean, here's the Note, the Note 20. Let me put the Pixel 5 up next to the Note 20. You can kind of see, I mean, the Note 20 is in a case, but you can see just from the camera domino on the back of the Note 20, like how a Pixel 5, very easily fits into just the surface area of a Note 20 with plenty of room to spare. This entire year, from Velvets and V60s to the Xperia 1, the Xperia 1 Mark II. I got to play with one of the Black Sharks for just a very brief period of time. Another really big phone. It's just kind of nice having sort of a synergy of hardware design where, I was picking up the Pixel 4a, and I still hold that this is probably one of the best bang for buck communicators available. And then I pick up the Pixel 5, and it kind of fits right in line with that same kind of at a glance, reference it, rear fingerprint sensor that's super easy to use. And you don't have to like kind of feel around on a screen or train muscle memory to always kind of tap in the same place on a screen because there's no tactile landmark, or, oh, if I'm wearing a mask, I can't use face unlock. The Pixel 5 has been a refreshing addition to this Google lineup in a way that I've very much enjoyed. I've been, obviously, given how cranky I get about how reviews are done, I've been very frustrated by a gadget conversation that only allows for Samsung to be the winner. Well, Samsung released the Galaxy S20 FE, and that's the only phone that can be worth it for the specs now. And I don't agree. I think this is pretty easy. For all of the things that we were praising about phones like the Pixel 4, there are going to be people who just want a nicer version of this. Software services directly from Google, bleeding edge, every new update, every bug fix, every security patch, all of the Pixel feature drops, which have improved what the phone can do. But they just want something that's a little nicer than this. Maybe it's built a little bit better, or, has the wide angle camera that we all knew the Pixel 5 was going to have. And so now there's an option to step up to something that's a little bit nicer and doesn't hit $1,000 price tag. I felt the same way about the Pixel 4 XL. It's not hard to understand someone who would love the aesthetic of a Pixel 3, but would want something that's just built nicer, built more luxury car, and have a few extra fun perks. Pixel 5 maintains that. So I almost throw it across the Gadget Lab. Pixel 5 maintains that really well. And I don't see any conflict there where we can't have a couple different solutions. The person I would recommend a Galaxy S20 FE is still a slightly different consumer than someone I would recommend a Pixel 5. I really look at my dad. Like, my dad went from a Pixel 2 to a Galaxy S9 and didn't like it. He's still with his Galaxy S9 because that's what his carrier kind of shoved at him, and he's just, he's kind of obstinate and too lazy to like really go and shop other phones. But I guarantee you he's not going to go back to Samsung now that he's looking to replace his Galaxy S9. And I don't think he's going to be bothered by processing power. He's not going to care about, all of these minutia camera settings and modes. He's really not interested in a larger phone, and in fact wants to get back to a smaller device. Even it's going to be a bummer for him because he's going to want something that's 5G, but I think he's going to want something that's like even smaller than his Pixel 2 was, and that doesn't exist. 5G and Galaxy Alpha, those sizes don't match. I think if he could, he'd probably rock something like an Xperia Compact, right? Like if it could perfectly fit in a shirt pocket and not peek out over and not weigh his shirt down, that would be the phone for him. I almost want to see, like, could he get by on a Palm phone? But he would never do that because he also wants something a little nicer. And so I look at that and think, like, yeah, I think Pixel 5 might be his jam. I think that might be the gig. So I've only had the phone since Saturday. So, this embargo is probably going to lift soonish. I can't tell you all that. And I can tell you that I will have a video out relatively soon, talking about my experiences on the Pixel 5. And I'm not going to be calling it a review because I've only had the phone since Saturday. And I feel like anyone who's had the phone since Saturday and calls their video a review should be mocked ruthlessly on the internet. So Sentinel 909, it is kind of an interesting lineup. There is no premium tier, most expensive, all the bells and whistles Pixel, but I haven't played with a Pixel 4a 5G. Like, I don't have one of those. I have a Pixel 4a and I have a Pixel 5. Understanding that the 4a 5G is larger and has the same processor, I understand some of the back and forth. For me, one of the biggest things that I kind of wish we didn't have to choose was, do I want a headphone jack or do I want 5G? And if there was one thing, obviously, I would be most cranky about, I wish Pixel 5 had a headphone jack. I really wish I could just have that complete synergy across the Pixel lineup. But to me, this move is very similar to what LG is doing on the Velvet. It's a nicer built phone. It feels better in the hand. It knowing that it's got better rated water resistance, having reverse wireless charging if that's something that matters to you as a lifestyle feature. And then climbing up, the nicer screen with the slightly faster refresh rate, a 90 hertz refresh rate. It feels sleek. It looks smooth. 60 frame per second video, which I believe this is the only phone. Actually, I got to be careful. I think I might be getting close to violating some of my embargo. I'm going to back this off just a bit, but I do wish that the Pixel 5 had a headphone jack. Adichie NL, since Saturday, we expect a long-term review on the Pixel 5 by Thursday. You got to ride that hype train. Yeah, but the point I was trying to make is between the 4a 5G and the Pixel 5, I completely understand why those of us as techies who look at specs first are like, well, yeah, I would go with one phone over the other. But there is a consumer experience that I think is very Velvet-like, where you can pick up an LG Velvet and go, oh, but I wish it had more megapixels, or I wish it had OIS, or I see on the spec sheet it should have had this kind of processor. And I think you'd be missing the point as to what a consumer would be interested in. I'm trying to I have my Velvets around here somewhere. So that when you go into a carrier store and you pick up a phone that really is like indistinguishable from a flagship product, and you're not looking at what the performance differences would be on a more expensive processor, like you're not really using that kind of horsepower, you are not hurt by shopping a $600 LG. And I feel like Pixel 5 makes a good similar argument and then is backed up by every bleeding edge update that Google's going to put out. Not, oh, well, if I wait a couple months, like I think there are betas out. You spend all this money on a Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. Cool. But, a Pixel 3a is on Android 11, right? Pixel 4a is on Android 11. The Pixel 4 XL is on Android 11. I mean, this will get it. It'll get it, and it'll get it relatively quickly compared to the rest of the Android the rest of the Android ecosystem. It won't get it like a Pixel. So, and then also it's just smaller. It's really refreshing. Because I want to, like, other phones that have been said, like, oh, for a 5G phone, it's not that big. You know, so here's the OnePlus 8. Again, not as any kind of detailed performance comparison, but I just love showing this as like a kind of a general comparison. So again, you know, like an entire forehead difference of size. You look at something like that Velvet. Oh, let me get the Velvet back. I love having like a good solid one thumb phone again. That's as easy to navigate as the Pixel 5 has been. And just like how much narrower, even though we've got a curved screen on the Velvet, how much narrower the Pixel is, where you can clearly see the frame peeking out from behind the Pixel, and how much shorter that is. So unfortunately, I can't do the Xperia 5 Mark II. I already had to send that back to Sony. I do have some more videos coming out on the 5 Mark II, but I don't have it in-house. I missed the window of having an overlap for both of those phones at the same time. So, Stumpy Thumb approved. LFA reviews. Is that Velvet? So it's been interesting, you know. Outside of my penchant for LG V series phones, the Pixel 4 XL was the phone from last year to the beginning of this year that I think held my SIM card the longest. And there's just something really unique about the feel of a Pixel. I mean, we make these sort of abbreviated gadget comparisons, like, oh, well, you know, it's Google makes it, so it's kind of like the Google iPhone. But a part of that's true. Navigation on my Pixel 4 XL has consistently been smoother than navigation on... I'm sorry, by that I mean like swiping up to go home, swiping in from the side for the back button. If I'm using an app in landscape on like I bring this up a lot, on a OnePlus, it's almost always a 2 or 3 swipe process to clear the app in landscape to get back home, whereas a Pixel seems to just register that navigation more seamlessly. And it kind of builds this trust for, you know, I pull this phone out of my pocket, I reference something on the screen, I swipe, I move, I do all this stuff, and then I put it right back away in almost kind of a Windows phone-y kind of way. I like streamlining and abbreviating these interactions to get the core of what I'm trying to accomplish done more efficiently. And while I feel LG and Samsung have packed all of these features and have added all of this great custom separate software, they don't always facilitate the most streamlined interaction to our notifications and to our communication. They'll offer all kinds of these amazing perks for camera performance or editing video or playing games or really pushing the boundaries on computering from our phone. But I think they often do that at the expense of using our phone, as a communications device. And so someone shopping a Galaxy S20 FE, yeah, that's absolutely a computer-focused consumer that I think will be very happy with more horsepower and different camera specs and all the stuff that Samsung's doing. Someone like my dad, who his game is solitaire. Like, that's the game he plays on his phone. He plays Spider, you know, like he's not pushing the boundaries of graphics intense gaming. He likes reading through restaurant reviews. He likes navigation, you know, like turn by turn navigation on his products. And, you know, like that's going to be his jam. I really don't think he would like the experience of a Galaxy S20. I don't think that would appeal to him. But having sort of the sleekest, more updated, security conscious, you know, that relationship with the product, I think he would actually appreciate the Pixel aesthetic more. The other thing that I just want to talk about this briefly, I'm debating whether or not I'm going to do a full standalone video, but maybe I'll do a written text piece instead. It has been interesting playing with the Pixel Buds. These are the little earbuds that, you know, if you don't have a headphone jack on your phone, you need something. And these are the Google solution. I don't want to hold these up because I've been using them like crazy. So, you know, there's a little human detritus on each earbud tip, and people get real, oh, he actually used them. Oh my gosh. You know, it all happens to everybody. You know, we all make gunk. But yeah, the case is cute. It's got like a nice little heft to it. Feels like a polished stone that you keep in your pocket. You flip them up and the phone automatically starts looking for them. They pair with almost anything. Like I flipped this open, and before I could get to my Pixel, my Sony fired up and said, hey, there's some earbuds. You want to pair with them? So this whole notion of like the ease of use or stream, it just works. Yeah, we're good. This is happening in Android land. Sorry, I'm reading through some of the comments and people like LFA reviews. Ew. I know, man, but it happens. So since using them on Saturday, it took me most of Sunday to get them updated. I do not like how Pixel Buds update. So you go into to your Bluetooth connection settings, and there's an expanded list of ways that you can control your Pixel Buds. And you say, I want to turn on automatic updates. Cool. Then I went like all of Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, and most of Sunday, and they never updated. And if you've been following the saga of the Pixel Buds, they launched in kind of a rough state, but this most recent update is supposed to fix a whole bunch of things, really improve performance. You know, it's supposed to be much better for signal dropouts and improve audio quality, blah, 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 blah. It seems to be, in my use, you have to be actively listening to them for a certain period of time with an active Bluetooth connection. At some point, the Pixels will decide that you should also piggyback the update over that signal. And then your phone will upload the update to the earbuds. And then when you put them back in the case, at some point arbitrarily, they'll update when they're in the case. I do not like that. I mean, I think I was on firmware 296 and I'm trying to get to firmware 552. And I'm sitting there trying to force this along because I don't want to use the buds on firmware that I know doesn't perform as well. This is I have a very limited window where I'm going to be having to rush to get content out on the Pixel 5. And I don't want to sit here and wait for the buds to decide when they feel like updating. I just want one big button that says update the firmware. And then it'll say put the buds back in the case and we'll finish the firmware update. I don't like this hand holding, training wheels, soft around the edges. No one should ever have to like dig through menu settings. I'm in the menu settings. I'm telling you I want to do it. Do it now. You don't need to hold my hand. Just by demonstrating that I've gone to settings, connected devices, Bluetooth, Pixel Buds, gear icon, firmware update, you should understand that I want to do the firmware update. You shouldn't put that on hold. Do it then. So I'm on firmware 552. Short story, incredibly long. I'm on firmware 552. The one thing I do like, though, these seem to be... Oh, I don't have them out here right now. These seem to be the spiritual successors to what I really liked about LG Tone neckbands. So on LGs, you have this assistant button that beautifully streamlines a bunch of your interactions. LG did it right first. Notification comes in, click a button on your neckband, notification is read to you. When we're finished reading the notification, if you'd like to respond, click the button again, talk, and it sends your reply as speech to text. It transcribes your speech and sends it off. I'd have whole conversations with my wife over text messages just by doing speech to text on LG neckbands. The new LG True Wireless don't have the same speech to text. So you can still have your notifications read to you, but you can't reply. And that makes me sad. And the Pixel Buds integrate Google Assistant way better than sort of like standalone or third-party true wireless earbuds. This gets me way closer back to what I loved about LG neckbands. So I'm very happy about that. If you're going to make your phone feel like an ecosystem and have accessories, I'm really anxious about the Wear OS update, but I'm on Pixel Buds with a Pixel 5, a Wear OS smartwatch, and it's feeling like they're all starting to work together in a way that certain other companies have kind of beaten Google to the punch. I'm cool if Google can catch up. That would be nice for competition. I know a few people on my Discord were trying to make like a bingo card of like, you know, not a drinking game because, you know, I'd kill everybody on a drinking game. But I think in that last piece, I mentioned competition. I didn't have a but I digress, but I also complimented LG. That would be like almost an entire row for bingo right there. So there you go. From Dave Burns too, I agree with you, but we're such a minority of people that like using our technology. The concern isn't I don't want there to be automatic updates. The concern is making products that can bridge both communities. The update process on Pixel Buds makes perfect sense from a hands-off, you know, keep consumers focused on using products and not like having to perform those actions. But it should be pretty clear. It is a multi-step exercise getting to the menus on a phone to do something like look at the firmware status of a pair of Bluetooth earbuds. And I can't believe that there isn't a Google engineer out there who could look at someone going through that process and saying, hey, you know, we should just have big red update firmware button for those people. Like, just force the process right there. Can we code that? I'm pretty sure we can. We're Google. I'm pretty sure they have someone in a basement who can make big red button that will start the process. And that's what's upsetting to me is I feel like that's an oversight. You know, if I'm running tech support for my family, I'm the person that's trying to help them get apps updated or run updates for their operating system or explaining why they'd want to have this kind of security. And I go to their earbuds and they're complaining, yeah, the earbuds kind of drop out a lot. I can't go and get them to update. My recommendation for them is turn off ear detection, play music on your phone for a couple hours, and then put them back in your case for a couple hours, and hopefully it will automatically run the update. That's my ability to give advice. If I have convinced someone like, hey, maybe you should have some Pixel Buds with your cool Pixel phone, that's the only advice I can give. That's not okay. That's bad. So, yes, it's not great. From LFA Reviews, if I can run updates on $50 Chinese earbuds, the top names in the game should be the same. Even Soundcore, JLab, and Sony have figured it out. I would say the weakest aspect of owning One More headphones has been the different apps that they've tried to use to update firmware. And I can get to my really awesome, expensive One More ANC True Wireless. And at some point, I can get to an app with a button that says firmware. and I would say that's not been one of One More's strengths, is making that process easy. I can talk someone through on the phone directly how to do that. I can't do that on Pixel Buds. That drives me nuts. So, Walt Samarista, ironic how Google fails at updates on their wireless earbuds. The update has improved. Again, like I feel like performance did get better. I was having dropouts like from first listen. I'd put the phone in my back pocket, listening to a podcast immediately. The buds stuttered and they skipped. And that's a big warning sign for me. Sunday, I finally got the update to take. That's been improved. So the quality of the update isn't in question. Google is iterating and they are improving their products. I feel like that would be a big help for someone like me. Pacostin, how far we've come. We have to update the firmware on the headphones and be happy about it. So, sorry. Anything headphone related is both going to be a diatribe and an easy way to make me cranky. But yeah, so this is the holding pattern I'm in for a Google ecosystem. I'm now very anxious. I'm telling you how much I've enjoyed having this tick watch. I kind of feel like Google's strategies should start incorporating some of these product lines. What Google has done with earbuds as an augmentation of your phone, where you can get the assistant to recognize a hot word command just through your voice. Like you don't have to touch the earbud if you don't want to. You can toggle that. You can turn that on or off, that hot word detection. This is something you wear. This is something that uses an operating system called Wear OS. Now I feel like Google needs to start stapling some of these teams together so that we can have an ecosystem of technology that we wear under one cohesive umbrella that then augments our phone computer services capabilities. Where a phone does a bunch of things really well. I reference a watch because I think notifications and fitness tracking are better there. And then I put in earbuds to have a more intimate notification, speech to text, short form reply interaction with my phone in a more intimate way. I mean, it's literally organically in my skull. Google is in my skull. Now that's what's making me both anxious and hopeful. A Google that starts recognizing these pairings, these relationships, and treats it holistically with the rest of their services and their software offerings would be really exciting. I mean, it would be tremendously exciting to see some more of that synergy. Where there have been some obvious frustrations, like YouTube Music doesn't work as well on an Android a Wear OS smartwatch as Google Play Music did. Integrating that with earbuds, being able to like track a workout and only leave the house with a watch and some earbuds. You know, we've figured this kind of stuff out in Apple land. Samsung has a pretty good grip on some of this product synergy. Even if you can mock or laugh at Bixby, some of that stuff is already kind of better baked, better integrated on the Gear side of the Android ecosystem. I want that here now with Google. So Dave Burns, after I mentioned Google's in my skull, Elon Musk has entered the chat. And Gary the Fireman, pretty sure Google has all of the former HTC scientists working on that. Again, where Pixels have gone from last year to this year, like that HTC talent is doing some really interesting stuff. So it'd be nice to see that be sort of the path forward, the iteration. Pacostin, the strange part is, why does Wear OS devices need a slightly cut down version of Android? Cough, fuchsia incoming, cough, cough. Yeah. I mean, again, I think there's plenty of room for disruption. I think there's plenty of room to shake this up. Just because Google and Apple and Microsoft and Amazon all kind of occupy a certain idea of like tech domination doesn't mean that there aren't cracks and crevices for a company to come in and do something very disruptive. I mean, again, I'm fingers crossed. I'm hopeful. I really want to see what this new Wear OS update can do with the performance that's already improved on this new chipset, this new TicWatch. It's already way better. If Google can streamline this even more, that would make me very happy. So we should probably go ahead and start clearing this all up. Techtober, I have way too much stuff. I'm spending my last week with the where did I put it? Oh, with the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. I've been off the Note as my crown jewel daily driver phone for a couple years now. Excuse me. I mean, it kind of started with the Note 7, where I kind of shifted more over into the LG V series. But there is some really, it's been an interesting and emotionally complicated homecoming. So I'm going to have a video about using the Note 20 as a productivity device. And then TK and I are going to be doing a co-stream where we talk about our experiences. I really want my Surface Duo back. The long and short of it is, spoilers for anyone who's going to be catching the videos that I put out on this. This is a beast monster phone. It's a great phone. This is kind of peak Samsung in a glass-on-glass rectangular slab, not folding, not bending, not dual display, none of those other fancy additives. This is kind of like the peak iteration of what 2020 can represent for this style of phone. I kind of want more. I kind of want something else. When I pick up a V60, it lives in its dual display case. I was already quickly coming to rely on how I could multitask on a Duo. And I pick up a Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. It does everything well. It does everything well. And I still want more. and now more kind of means more display, where I totally get why someone would want this kind of an experience and would be willing to sacrifice the S Pen just to get a fold so that they could get that extra screen real estate and literally do more from their phones. But it's really driving home to me. From the V50 on LG, the international V50, which had the dual display case, where we are now, I want more. The Note 20 Ultra at the end of the year doesn't feel like the runaway victory it should over phones like the OnePlus 8 Pro. If I had bought at $999, if I had bought a OnePlus 8 Pro at the beginning of the year and then picked up this Note 20 Ultra today, I think I'd be feeling fine on the OnePlus 8 Pro. Like, yeah, a couple pros and cons. It'd be nice to have a memory card reader. I get it. Nah, I'm good. Like, it's pretty heady stuff, and the performance factor doesn't help Samsung as much as you might think it would. I'm going to write up by the benchmarks. I don't think I'm going to do a video on it. The Note 20 is already sadly over on YouTube. Killing me. Like, we've only just gotten this phone into consumers' hands for real. Like, actually getting it out into the ecosystem. And looking at the numbers on Note 20 Ultra videos, it's already dead. That's insane. And it is so not fair to a product as well refined as Samsung has delivered on the Note 20 Ultra. But I already have way too much stuff to shoot videos on. So I think I'm going to write up an article for By the Benchmarks. But one of the things, it's like, man, Samsung is utilizing all of this crazy powerful hardware. It's not really winning a lot of showdowns when I pit it up against other phones like a V60, like a OnePlus 8 Pro, it's a very mixed bag of performance improvements and software compromises. And I don't know, I feel like we should be doing a better job of detailing the real world use of that kind of stuff. So anyway, from Michael, in terms of the YouTube algorithm, it's over. The SEO DTNL, it's scary how short the SEO lifespan is. The window we get to talk about this stuff is like embargo week. That's it. And everything plummets. Once the sort of general assessment of the tech community is weighed in on Reddit, you're done. And that's not how these things live. Someone is buying the Note 20 Ultra expecting 3 years of use. This is a 3-year conversation that YouTube has declared over the week before the phone actually was available to sell. This is so messed up. But I made a Velvet T-Mobile video, if you guys want to catch that. SEO hasn't been kind to that video either. So I said I was going to wrap this up. I just wanted to kind of share some thoughts on the Note 20 since I probably won't be making a lot of videos on it. I think I'm going to do the camera and audio deep dives for the Patreon. I still need to finish the Sony Patreon camera deep dive. And then from there, I want to do sort of a joint Pixel 5, Pixel 4a camera review, because again, there are a lot of similarities in camera performance there. And I'm going to need to spend some time with a Wing and a OnePlus 8T. This year's got a lot going on. And I keep coming back to like, man, I pick up some of these really awesome new phones and then I really miss my Duo. I really liked what Microsoft was doing on the Duo. It was pretty cool. So be on the lookout for a lot of stuff. And just because I have some people still here in the live chat, Walt is asking, I do not have the Wing. I don't know when I'll be getting the Wing. It's a different kind of track. You know, LG likes me a lot when I'm talking V60 and Velvet. And, you know, again, I've been kind of an advocate for their style of smartphones. And because I genuinely, personally, really lean on LG to get my work done. I think even for them, they were looking at the Wing as like, this is not your regular YouTube tech reviewer kind of product. And so I didn't make the cut for getting a Wing in that early first batch. So again, when it comes out, I'm going to be getting one. And I'm hoping LG will keep me on the list so I can play. But that's absolutely going to be even if it's a phone I have to wait a month, that's going to be a phone I will be spending some time with. But sorry, wrapping this up. The outlook on where we're wrapping up 2020 is really exciting though. 2020 started on a bad track, right? Normalizing $1,000 to $1,300 regular phones, slamming brands like OnePlus because they had the audacity to put out a phenomenal performer at $999 against Galaxy S20s. And now we're even seeing reports that like some of those early first half of the year phones from Samsung, like the standard model Galaxy S20, are already kind of being pushed out of the way so that they could sell the FE instead. So we can get real snarky about how Google pulled the Pixel 4 XL from manufacturing, but that's already starting to happen with the Galaxy S20, and we haven't made it to the end of 2020 yet, right? I feel as we conclude this year, as we see sort of the horizon for Techtober and the phones that are coming out at the end of 2020, collectively, mass market consumers and tech manufacturers are kind of reading the writing on the wall. There's a market for super premium, ultra luxury, heavy lifting, powerful pocket computers, but we don't need to keep punishing consumers for shopping in the mid-range. And if we have a more healthy, vibrant marketplace of options, 700 and lower, That is way better for the tech community at large. Like, seeing that the Pixel 5 is on this mid-ranger chipset and that it's still going to get 3 years of software updates should make you very happy for the course Google is going to take with their software and services. It means if you do buy a premium expensive phone, it's going to run better because Google is going to be starting their support with the idea of a mid-ranger chipset on Android and for Google services. No one should be complaining about a Pixel 5 using a 765. Everyone should be happy to see Google's focus at that tier. And then if you do buy something more expensive, it's gravy. The performance is just extra. So, there's a lot of chat happening in the live stream, but more than anything else, I just really appreciate those of you that are continuing to have some of these conversations with me, and I wish I could be a bit more specific about when, where, and how all of these videos are going to be coming out, but it's just the promise I'm making to you today. I have way too many videos to make, and that I will be making all of them. I just might not be on the fastest timetable for some of them. So let me take one more sip of water here, and we're going to close this out. So, folks, I want you to have an amazing week with your technology. I want you to do awesome with your technology. I want you to be awesome with your technology. And keep an eye out on all of the stories that we talked about this week, because these are all ongoing conversations. We're going to be following up on this stuff for the weeks to come. And Techtober is going to get crazy. And if you want to see even just like another step of these conversations, I'm going to be on All About Android tomorrow, where we're going to be talking about some of this stuff, and some of it we won't be able to talk about as much, but some of it's going to be same wheelhouse, same ballpark, great community conversations. And I hope to see all of these faces hit that podcast tomorrow also. Folks, be well, take care. Stuff is still crazy out in the world around us right now. And I hope to see all of these faces back here, all of these screen names, all of these comments back here next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Catch you back. Take care. I love you all.